Hi, everyone. Welcome to the YES Program IEW webinar. My name is Moiz Rehan. I hope you're doing great. My name is Moiz Rehan, and I'm a YES alum from Pakistan. I had the opportunity to be on the YES program in 2012 to 13, and I am now working as a grants program assistant at IRN USA. This is the first webinar that I am facilitating, so I am really excited for everyone to join us today. I want to take a moment and thank our amazing YES and YES Abroad alumni speakers who are joining us from all over the world for sharing their time and advice on International Education Week. And finally, and most importantly, I want to thank everyone who is joining us right now and taking the time out of their day to learn more about IEW. Okay, so before we begin, let's go over a quick review of some of the features in this Zoom room so all attendees can navigate and participate easily. Please review the chat box settings and set them to all panelists and participants. And I encourage everyone to chat with each other during the webinar and ask questions from our speakers. And we will be sort of looking at all the questions and making sure that we can answer them during the webinar. And also let us know who you are, where you're joining us from. So yeah, as I say, sound off in the chat box. I also want to share a feature of the Zoom room, which is polls. So during the webinar, we'll be conducting a few polls. So why don't we do a practice poll right now, which is going to be, who are you? So we'll launch the poll, and then you can share who you are. Either are you a YES alum, are you a YES on-program student, a YES program staff, a YES Abroad alumni, or a YES Abroad on-program student. And we're already getting quite a few responses. So that's really exciting. So we'll wait a few more seconds to see. And then I can actually share the responses with everyone, so we'll know who's here and who they are. Great, so we have quite a few YES on-program students, so that's really exciting. Thank you so much for joining us right now. And we have a few others as well. And whoever you are, I hope you have a great time during this webinar. The next thing I want to talk about is that we're also on Facebook. So this is being streamed live onto Facebook. And for those of you who are joining us through Facebook Live, please feel free to add your comments and questions there as well. And finally, we are recording this webinar. So if you missed something or just want to watch it again, you can visit our website, YouTube, or Facebook page. And especially for on-program students, if you want to review the tips and advice shared by our speakers, then you can actually see the video again. And we can also share the PowerPoint if you would like that. Okay, so let's see how many of our webinar participants already know about International Education Week and whether you have participated in IEW projects before. So we will launch another poll now, which is going to be, have you ever done an IEW project before? Again, we're getting a lot of responses, which is really cool to see. We'll wait a few more seconds. Great. Okay, wow. So 67% of the people who responded have not done an IEW project before. 14 have. 27% have. So that's also really exciting to know. So what is IEW? I think I should introduce that first. IEW, or International Education Week, is a joint initiative of the US Department of State and the US Department of Education. It is a national effort to promote programs that can help young leaders from all over the world to be ready for the globalized world. So IEW is the perfect opportunity for YES students to do what they're supposed to be doing in general during their exchange year, which is to be young ambassadors for their countries. As you can see in these photos, these are from my own exchange year when I was a YES alum, when I was a YES student, and I participated during IEW as well. Um, so IEW provides an opportunity for American students, for YES students to do presentations during their exchange year, and it also provides an opportunity for American students on the YES Abroad program who study in various countries all over the world to act as cultural ambassadors for the US. YES students conduct presentations and projects during IEW to educate Americans about their countries and cultures, while YES alumni all over the world also participate in IEW by sharing their YES experiences with people in their communities back home. And so by sharing themselves and where they come from, both YES and YES Abroad students and alumni simultaneously build bridges of understanding and friendship in the place of negative stereotypes, xenophobia, and Islamophobia. And when I was a YES student, I believe I made about 24 presentations during IEW, and it was definitely one of the highlights of my exchange year, and I'm really glad that I got to do that. So today we will be hearing from some incredible alumni who took advantage of IEW to reach out to their host communities while they were YES students, and also took inspiration from IEW to continue doing projects when they returned to their home countries. I want to encourage the webinar attendees to use IEW to be self-reflective and mindful also about their YES experience, especially because we have so many on-program students joining us, and to think about the impact that you are having in the US or back home as cultural ambassadors. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first alumni speaker, Alexis Sadqa. Alexis is from Tirana, Albania. In 2019 and in 2018 to 2019, Alexis was hosted by the YES program in Lehigh, Utah, and she attended the Lehigh High School. So welcome, Alexis, and thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. All right, so my name is Alexis, and I'm from Albania, and here's International Education Week 101 from me. So if we could move on to the first slide. Okay, so for a second, I would like all of you to be thinking about what International Education Week and International Education mean to you. So for me, International Education Week meant to be able to celebrate international diversity by creating bridges of understanding. And it really helped me realize that Americans really care about my culture just like I care about theirs. And it was also an amazing bonding experience for me and for my family and friends in the United States. So if we could move on. Thank you. So here's a picture of me presenting in my medical anatomy class. I had a great experience presenting in the United States, and everyone was so excited to listen to me. I believe I gave around 21 presentations, but I might be wrong, and they were like the highlight of my November and of my year in general. Just like Moy said, it's one of the most amazing things that you get to do as an exchange student. So I just collected a few tips that I have for people who get to present this year or in the years to come. Because these tips really helped me present and be successful, and I learned from my mistakes. So I would love it if you guys learn from mine too. So it's awesome to be original and keep your presentation short and precise. What people are looking for in a presentation is something that is going to be interesting to them and not something they can just look up online. So like maybe instead of telling the people the percentage of Muslims in your country, you can tell them how you and your family love to celebrate Eid and tell them your special tradition. And then less data and more fun facts, which still ties into what I just said. We need to actually show them how things are done instead of just collecting data. So if someone can pull something up right online, maybe don't put that on your presentation. And then another idea would be to compare without competing. So you could compare the things that you see in the United States to how they are in your country without saying which one you feel is better or worse, but just deciding how they're different so that it's more applicable to the people that get to attend your presentation. And then if you get any negative responses, don't take them personally and just keep moving on and presenting. And then if you could please get to the next slide. Thank you. So some other tips that I would have are to teach the audience. So the way that you could do that is by engaging them through teaching them a phrase or a dance or a song or the alphabet in your language. And then you could even cook something and hand it out. That's me and my friends cooking. I don't think it was an International Education Week, but we cooked a meal from our different countries. One of them is from Japan, excuse me, and the other one is from Italy. So we just mixed all of our cultures and made a cake. And then you could take questions during or after your presentation. You could offer your audience to ask you questions so you can clarify things. You could bring something and pass it around for people to see. And then another tip would be if you're in a class, maybe you wouldn't want to make it applicable to your course. So for your marine biology class, maybe talk about endemic fishes in your country. And then for your history class, maybe focus on the history of your country. And then if we could please move on. Alrighty. And then take pictures while you're doing your presentation and do as many presentations as you can. And then make sure you're having fun because if something isn't adding value to your life, then you don't need it in it. So just make sure you're having a good time while you're talking about your country. And for me, it was a way to get rid of my homesickness. Like I felt like I was back home as I was talking to my friends and family in my country. And practice as much as you want. So practice makes perfect. So try the hardest, present maybe to your family or to your friends or even to yourself in front of the mirror if you're feeling scared, and you're gonna do just fine. And then if you could go on to the next slide, please. Okay, so when you're presenting, maybe don't limit yourself to your own high school. You could go to other schools, you could go to middle schools, preschools, maybe to your religious group. If your family and you attend one, you could maybe present to them. And then if you have a sports team or a volunteering group, you could also share your International Education Week presentation with them just to make it more wide. And preschools are also a good idea because children love to learn new things. I presented for a preschool and that was very fun. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so this is for the Yes alumni. I'm a very new alumni. I just returned, and maybe there's people that are way more experienced than me about this, but here are some ideas for alumni and for students right now when they become alumni in order to keep celebrating International Education Week at home. You could take note of what you like in your host community, like special things that people do. Like I remember when I was in Utah, I saw many people decorating cookies, and I never thought that was a thing. So I took note of that, and I really want to do some projects where I teach people how to decorate cookies. I just think that's a very cool thing. And then you could do like voice memos. You can have your friends write your memories in a notepad, or you can have a blog or a virtual diary, or in my case, you can just do all of them. Can we move on, please? Thank you. And then another idea would be to do international education weeks, but kind of the reverse version. So you can present on the United States in your home country. And I plan on doing one for my English class in Albania. So you could go to preschools, elderly homes, your high school, Or you could ask people from your local alumni association, because older and more experienced alumni are going to have great ideas of what you can do. And then can we move on? Thank you. Another idea would be to keep in touch with all of your friends and family from the United States, because I feel like it's very important to get excited with them about things like Thanksgiving or Halloween that maybe aren't as big in your country. It's a really good way to keep in touch and to remember the way that certain things that you experienced felt. I love talking to my friends and my family, and I love seeing them online. And yep, can we move on to the last slide? Thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah, I think that's all the slides we have for you, Alexis. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and all this really wonderful and informative advice.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining us, and please stick around and we will do a Q&A as well. And you're welcome to use the chat box and respond to any of the questions that you see there. That'll be really helpful. Great. So before we move on to the next speaker, we would love to do another poll. And we're going to ask, do you have plans for International Education Week already? So this poll is going to ask you if you're going to be involved in IEW this year. And we're getting a lot of responses again. I love this crowd. This is a great crowd. Thank you so much for being engaging and for just, being here and attending this webinar. So thank you. Okay, let's see the results. Amazing. So we have 47 people who do have plans for IEW, which is really exciting. And we have 12 people who don't have plans, but they want to do something. So hopefully this webinar can give you some ideas on what to do during IEW. Okay, so we will now move on to our second speaker. Our second speaker is Heba El Saidi from Gaza, Palestine. Heba studies English literature at the Lebanese American University in Beirut, Lebanon. And Heba is a 2013 to 2014 YES alumna, and she was placed in Lake Stevens, Washington State. So welcome, Heba, to the IEW webinar.
Thank you. Hi. Okay. So yeah, thank you for the introduction. I think that IEW is very important because we get the chance and the opportunity to explore and try to understand what it's like to come from a certain country with a completely different background. That way we become more accepting and open-minded. Next. Okay. So I'll be talking about my YES experience in the US at first. It was pretty boring, honestly, for the first 2 months. And I was still a shy kid who did not know what to do. But the entire experience was built for me to leave my comfort zone and start discovering myself with minimum help. And it all changed once I knew that IEW was around the corner, and it was the top of the month among YES students. And I felt like I needed to represent my country and my culture in the best ways possible. So the first thing I did was to talk about with one of my teachers, and we dedicated an entire day for that. So I sat in his class for all 6 periods of a Friday, and I answered student questions about Palestine. And most of their questions were about politics, since it was a contemporary world issue class. And when other teachers got wind of that, they were asking me to do the same in their classes. However, I took that opportunity and I prepared PowerPoint presentations. I prepared music and dance videos. I cooked dessert, and I actually managed to do like one of the dance sessions for Palestinian Dabka, and it felt good that one day before the presentation, some people, some students did not know the difference between Palestine and Pakistan. But right after that, their entire perspective changed. And I really finished. I still felt it didn't feel right to just finish at that, and I just continued doing that, and I continued representing my country. So every month we would yeah, that's the dessert I cooked, and that's the dabka dance we did, and me cooking and everything. So every once in a while, or once in a month, we would hang out in the band room, and we would just like exchange some facts, me talking about my culture and my country, and them telling me about their culture and how is the US and how they live there. And around Easter, I went with my host parents to their church, and I presented there as well. And I made sure that before I went back home, I at least the entire school knew where I come from and about my country and traditions. So after that, I went back home. Next slide, please. That was me presenting in other classes as well. So I went back to Palestine, and I joined the alumni family. And when it was time for the IEW in 2014, it was suggested that we do booths that target a specific aspect of our study abroad experience to both promote studying abroad and teach them about the US. Some people, some alumni presented about sports, family and friends, and etc. However, yes, alumnus and I decided that we're going to do about high school life. And the presentation was based on visuals like pictures and videos of our classes, orientation, and extracurricular activities we did around the school. And the things we brought back from the US as well, like graduation capping gown, the diploma, and posters from we got as gifts, and we got the baseball bat and the baseball and the gloves. But the main item was my yearbook, which summarized my entire high school experience. And it was a pretty nice thing to show people that what other cultures look like and have them experience it in front of us. Then I traveled and I came here to Lebanon to pursue my BA. Next slide, please. And I came to Lebanon to pursue my BA, and I started to volunteer at the Office of International Services, which turned into a long-term thing. I've been there for almost 2 years now. And IEW is considered one of the, if not the main events they do here. And they invite ambassadors and embassies, study abroad, and exchange programs, and to invite international organizations and NGOs, as well as representatives from more than 30 partner universities around the world. And it's a huge culture event with dance shows and cultural food, and everything about cultural diversity, and encourage students to do study abroad. And the pictures I attached on the next slide. Those pictures are from 2017. We did this event where we put up booths for every representative, and they would perform their own traditional dances from their cultures. And but this year we had the EIW earlier, not on its exact date, and we did the same thing, but it was different this time because we had collaboration of international students from the MENA region at the university, and some of them were actually YES alumni, which made the IEW even more interesting because they were applying the exact thing they learned in the US. And I think that's it. However, my advice for current YES students is that they should view IEW as more than a 1 week presentation about their culture, and that it should be their duty for as long as they are in the US, it might to present it. And it might be hard at first, it's understandable, and it all starts with a small step, like, you know, as simple as drinking coffee with a friend, or talking about your traditions and culture with one of your host family members, and it just gets bigger, and you start doing presentations at gymnasiums for students. And as scary as that sounds, it will be fine once you're in the spot. And you can do dance videos as I did, or actually show them how to dance traditional dances. And always know that this opportunity is a once for a life opportunity, and you should never waste it. And once you go back home, you do the very first thing. You start telling them about the culture in the US and how Americans live their lives on a daily basis. And yeah, thank you, and I hope the best for you guys.
Thank you so much, Heba. That was really, really informative. And I really love the fact that you mentioned that it's not just 1 week where you can be active as an exchange student, because you can do this all year long, and really sort of get the training or just get the ideas that you need during IEW. And yeah, people really are interested. And I think that's really easy to forget when you're on the YES program, maybe, that there are people who might have never met someone from your country, who might have never done the dance that you know really well, or eaten the things that you know really well. So to all the exchange students joining us on program, this is just a reminder of how cool you guys are, and the fact that you have this amazing opportunity to showcase your culture and really create those cultural ties with everyone. So thank you, Heba, again for presentation. Just to get everyone more excited about IEW, I want to share some facts and stats from last year. So in 2018, YES program students gave over 3,650 presentations to almost 97,000 Americans in over 480 communities across all 47 YES hosting states. So that's really, really exciting. And I really hope that this year, YES students can surpass even those numbers and really showcase their culture and their selves through IEW. So now we're going to move on to our third speaker, whose name is Marco Kelly. Marco Kelly is actually an alum of the YES Abroad program in Bulgaria from the 2018 to 19 cohort. He is currently studying at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, in hopes of receiving his degree in international studies. And for people who do not know, the YES Abroad program is the sort of counterpart to the YES program, where American students, high school students, actually get the opportunity to go study abroad in another country. So I'll let Marco speak more about his experience. Thank you so much, Marco, for joining us.
Of course. Thank you for the introduction. So like you said, I'm Marco Kelly. I studied abroad in Eastern Europe, Sofia, Bulgaria, last year as a YES Abroad student. So first, I'm just going to start off with saying what exactly international education is. So I believe it's the enhancement of international attitudes and awareness. It strives for the positive attitudes towards peace, international understanding, and responsible world citizenship. International Education Week is important to celebrate the benefits of international education and exchange worldwide. International education is important to me because of the cultural knowledge, the cultural acceptance, and cultural immersion. So these three things I broke down into different ways, because as an exchange student, I feel like we face these like throughout the year. First, with cultural knowledge, like the characteristics, history, values, and beliefs and behaviors of another ethnic or cultural group. Cultural acceptance, I feel like this is a big one. As an exchange student, respecting these beliefs, values, and behaviors. And then cultural emergence, surrounding yourself with the culture of a place. So as an exchange student, we all have met all of these particular points. So I want to go to why it's important to me, why international education is important to me. So I'm an international studies major in the hope of becoming a United States ambassador. And as an ambassador, I'm basically a representation for a president in a foreign country. And it's kind of ironic because as an exchange student, we kind of represent our country. So when I was in Bulgaria, I represented the United States. And my future goal is to represent United States as the president of that country. So it's kind of like was training me for my future career goal. So I encourage all you guys to kind of look at what you want to do in the future or what you want to do now, something that interests you, and it will really help like steer you in the right direction on what you can do for International Education Week. Yeah, so this is basically a good way to find like your passion and interest into like different projects that you want to do. So go to the next slide. So like I said, I studied in Eastern Europe, Bulgaria. So what I did was I decided to make desserts. I'm from the South, so I live from Miami, Florida. I have a lot of family in Georgia, which is they're very stern on like cooking Southern food. And so I thought maybe I'll make desserts because in Bulgaria, they have a lot of delicious desserts, but not as many as I was used to in the United States. So I cooked things like sweet potato pie, lemon pound cake, banana bread, pineapple cake, and fudge brownie. Some things that people have never seen before in Bulgaria. And some things that they did, but in a different way. So while I was doing this, we shared this food, but I also had presentations about United States, why these different foods and desserts were important to us, and the different holidays we would cook these different desserts. Like for Thanksgiving, they were not really they really didn't know about Thanksgiving since that's more of a United States thing. So it was really a good way for me to educate them on what Thanksgiving is and how it started, what we do during Thanksgiving. And I also shared that we do this during other holidays like Christmas. So I also planned around this. I also wanted to share things with me. So around this time, we had like one of my cohort's host moms made us banitsa, showed us how to make banitsa. So it was a good way for us to show how we make our different desserts, but they also showed us how they make their desserts, how these are important to their culture. So also, I want to make mention too that like International Education Week, although it is a week, I think Heba said this before, you can always do projects throughout your exchange year. And I think this is very important as an exchange student, because I don't think we should like conform to 1 week. Although we should do something for International Education Week, I think you should do it throughout the year, because they'll really help you with teaching other people about your culture and other things like that. So for example, for me, in February, in the United States, we celebrate something called Black History Month, which is like African Americans and different things they did in the past that has helped like really shaped America. So I shared this in Bulgaria at my local school and with my host parents. I also shared it in different towns in Bulgaria that have never heard about Black History Month, and some of them have never even seen an African American male. So it was also a good thing for them to learn about. And while in this experience, this was a great gateway for me to speak about different things like I was going through in Bulgaria. As being in Bulgaria as an African American, there were like things where like people have never seen me before, so different things would happen. I'm pretty sure many exchange students know how I could feel about that. So definitely, it was a great gateway for me to speak about some issues while still educating them and kind of open a conversation for thoughts and how they feel about this and how I felt about different things like that. So I think it's good that we present throughout the year and find something that's like really personal to you and to your culture. Maybe like if you have like a particular, I know in Bulgaria, like March is like we do banitsa, and we would put on these things on our hands and you're supposed to put them on a tree when you see a certain bird. So if you do things like that, that's like good during that month. You can share it within your local high school or with your host parents. Next slide. All right, so sharing this experience when you get back home. So I believe that this starts now. This can go by Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. This generation is really big on social media, so it wouldn't be that hard. So when you're doing presentations around, maybe just share, say, oh, fun fact about where I'm at right now. This is how this is. This is how this is. Just little fun facts like that. You are sharing international education by just sharing fun facts on Facebook, because you're getting a wide variety of people. It's also a good idea to like maybe share a Yes Abroad story. If you go on the Yes Abroad website, you're able to like share stories that may that you're like interested in. You can share with your friends and family, and then they post this on the website, and they also post this on different social media. So that's a good way to also reach the environment back home. Also, I know many of you now are not thinking about going back home. I hope you're enjoying your exchange, but it will come a time when you do have to go back home. And I feel like you have to start thinking about that now. Not thinking about going home, but thinking about presenting. So that means learning as much as you can while you're in your host country. So everything, just suck up as much knowledge as you can. So when you go back home, you can really share that knowledge with the people back in your home. It'll be a really good thing when you're doing presentations. For instance, if you're in New York City, you can say, oh, how bad the traffic is because you were there, you learned it, and you can go back and say, well, the traffic here is very different. That's different things you can educate people on, and this will inspire them to also want to study abroad and learn more about that particular culture. For example, like I did like a thing at the bottom. If you can see, it's like a fun fact. Did you know Bulgaria is the oldest country in Europe that hasn't changed its name since it first was established? This is like a fun fact. You can share this on Twitter, Facebook, and this is a good way to like really help promote International Education Week. Next slide. So ideas for International Education Week. So I would like to like draw your attention to going to IEW.state.gov. They have a lot of different information on there. They also like send out flyers and different things like that you can hang around school. It may be a little too late for them to send it now, but I feel like you should still go in there. They have a lot of different things for you to use, and that can like help you with ideas that you want to do for International Education Week. Also, you can think of ideas that are personal to you, like I said before. For instance, like with me, my family was big on cooking, so it was like something that I would want to do, like with different desserts and treats, and then sharing that through like International Education Week. Or you can do something like, if you're like really good at dancing or something, you can do like a dancing around the world event where you're doing your traditional dances from your country, and the people from your host country are they're dancing, and it's like you're exchanging the different cultural aspects. So I do recommend hosting these events like much. I think you should really try to make sure you like really investigate your audience. So if you go to a high school and you know that you have teens, maybe do something that teens will mostly be relatable with, so it's like easier for you to share the knowledge, and it's easier for them to relate to, and it'll be easier for them to learn and have fun while they're doing it. And I think that is about it. Also, like if you have any questions for me, you can always like reach out to me. You can send me a little quick email. If you need me, you can like just say it in the chat, and I can like help you with anything you need. It took me a while to like really figure out what I want to do for International Education Week, but after a while, I kind of got it. So if you need any help, I'm always here. And yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Marco, for sharing your experience and also highlighting the fact that exchange students now everywhere, all over the world, can use social media to talk about their cultures, talk about what they're doing. And I strongly encourage both YES and YES Abroad students to submit stories. So you can go to your respective websites, yesprograms.org or yes-abroad.org, and you can go to submit a story, and we want to hear about what you're doing during your exchange year. And especially for IEW, please, please, please share all that you're doing using hashtag YesIsIEW, and also send us those photos through all the social medias, or just email them directly to us, and we would love to highlight your efforts during IEW on our social media. Okay, so before we move on to the next speaker, we have another poll, because we're interested to see how you learned about this webinar itself. So we're going to launch another poll. How did you learn about the YES Program IEW webinar? Was it through the YES Program website, through social media, through the Alumni Association, through word of mouth, or through other, which might be anything? And you can also type your answer in the chat box if you cannot see the poll. so we will know how you're joining us. Great, so we'll end the poll now and share the results. Great, so we have some from the website, some from social media, some from YES program staff, so that's really exciting. So thank you to all the YES program staff who might be local coordinators, who might be other people associated with the YES program who helped tell their students about this webinar. So I really want to thank everyone. I also want to give a shout out to Barb Kelly, who was my local coordinator when I was an exchange student in Chicago. So she's actually on the webinar right now as well. And so it's really exciting to see her because I loved her a lot. And I'm really excited that she's here. Great, so now we're gonna move on to our next speaker, who is Daisy from Cameroon. Daisy is a 2017 to 18 YES alumna from Cameroon, hosted in Indiana. She is currently a high school senior, and she's very engaged in her YES Alumni Association. So welcome, Daisy, to the YES program IEW webinar.
Hi there.
Hi. Well, take it away.
Oh, okay. Well, my name is Daisy, and I was hosted in Indiana in the year 2017, 2018. Yep, I'm from Cameroon. Well, we're talking about the IEW. I'd just like to caption its seed, which involves celebrating culture, celebrating exchange, celebrating education, and celebrating diversity. Now, can we go to next slide, please? Yep. Now, you need to know why IEW is important to you. First of all, you're an exchange student, you're a world ambassador, you're a leader, and of course, you're youth. It's now the time or never. You get to be ambassadors of your own country, which is very important. Next slide, please. Yeah. Well, a little bit about my IEW experience. That picture was taken at a local school where we went to do our presentations. Yeah, memories. Can you please go to the next slide? Okay, now how did I celebrate the IEW? I did a lot of presentations in school, at church, and also at the museum. It was really interesting though. Yeah, please go to the next slide. Okay, now this is what you all should know about your presentations. There should be a lot of demonstrations in them. Like you should get souvenirs from your country and share them with your American friends. Now, even if you return back home and the souvenirs stays in the US, they're just going to remember Cameroon just because of those souvenirs. Yeah, like demonstrations, you have to make them interesting. So I did a lot of dance demonstrations. Can you please play the video? I mean, that's next. Yeah, that one.
I don't think we're gonna be able to play the video, Daisy.
Yeah, it's okay. All right. Next slide.
YouTube, you can share it in the chat.
If it's a YouTube link, maybe you can share it after your presentation in the chat box.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, so you have to give Americans a taste. Now, you have to see these people like they've never gone out of America. So having a taste, for example, food, for example, clothes, it's going to be a memory that will stick in many of them. For what I did, I prepared a meal. We call it rice and stew in Cameroon. So I shared that to my classmates. They really enjoyed it, surprisingly, even though it was spicy. And then I shared traditional clothes from my country. Yeah, I mean, it was awkward for many of them, but yeah, that's all what IEW is about. You get to try all these new things for your first time, and you never know where it's going to lead you. Yeah, please go to the next slide. Okay, now to the current students, how to prepare for an IEW presentation. I would advise you meet your teachers if you're doing it in school. I'd advise you meet them as of now. If you've not yet met them, I think you're running late. So meet them right like this week and tell them about your presentations. Let them know about what you have in store for the class. Also, I think Kelly said something about this, but you have to get to know your audience. In order for your presentations to be lively, in order for your presentations to have that much impact, you have to get to know your audience. Now, for example, if you're presenting in a school, in a class full of teenagers, you won't start reciting all the history of your country. I mean, that's boring for many Americans. Now, just get to know your audience and get to know the kind of things you're going to present, and yeah, many more. Also, you want to gather your ideas. You have to brainstorm on things you think your classmates or your audience will want to learn. Get country souvenirs. This is very important. Like even after my presentations during the IEW, I had friends come up after me just to get a souvenir for my country. It was really fun because at least you get to make friends through through sharing souvenirs from your countries. And also, this is very important, do a PowerPoint. Now, if you come and stand in front of a class without a PowerPoint, they won't be able to visualize your presentations. You have to bring your presentations to life through pictures or yeah, videos or whatever. Can you please go to the next slide? Okay, now here's a list of questions to get you going while you prepare for your presentations. Now, I want you to brainstorm on things you would want to share or you want people to know about your country or about your family. And also, um, what would you be anxious to know about another culture? You should include that in your own presentation. Try to brainstorm on what people would be interested to know about your culture. Now, I think you should set your IEW goals. One of my IEW goals this year is to learn as many languages and learn how to say thank you in many languages. So you can include a different language in your presentation and teach Americans how to say I love you in your language. Okay, while I was doing my presentation, this guy walked up to me and he was like, how do you say I love you in French? I was like, je t'aime. So he said it immediately to his girlfriend. I mean, it was cool because the Americans got engaged with the presentations and that made it very lively. Oh, there's a big thing about stereotypes. Now is your time to cancel out those stereotypes. It's now or never. Like seriously, Americans have a lot of stereotypes. For me, many of them thought I lived in a bush. That's crazy, but yes, a guy asked me if I had a monkey. But you know what? That's the good thing about IEW. What they didn't know, they get to learn. And during your presentations, you're going to get all sort of silly questions. I bet you questions you won't be able to imagine human beings will ask. But you have to treat these questions with care because imagine these people have never been to your country. They don't know anything about you. All they know is what they see on online or on social media. So you have to break those norms and you have to break those stereotypes with them. And be careful the way you do it because that's going to send a message to them. I think that's all I have for now. Feel free to ask me any questions. Okay.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Daisy, for sharing your experience. And I really love the fact that you mentioned that everyone should expect to be sort of told a lot of stereotypes about their countries and to just be on the radar for that and just know that this is the opportunity where you can actually share true facts about your life. And I think in the beginning, as Alexis said, sharing about your own life in your country is actually a really effective way to dispel stereotypes because people really want to know how you live your life and what you do back home. So thank you so much, Daisy, once again for sharing your experience. So now we have our fifth and last speaker, Abdul Latif. And Abdul Latif is 19 years old and he's from Kaduna State, Nigeria. He is a YES alum from 2016 to 17, and he was hosted in San Antonio, Texas. Abdul Latif now attends a local college in Nigeria, and he's majoring in civil engineering. So, welcome, Abdul. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, guys. I won't be able to show you my face right now because The connection isn't really strong.
But we can hear you perfectly. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, I'm glad. All right, so my name is Abdul. Yes, I went on the exchange program 2016-2017. Stayed in San Antonio, Texas. I'm currently a student in Ahmadu Bello University. It's a local university here in Nigeria. Also, yeah, the photos here are the photo. That's the in the top left is the photo of an Emir's Palace in Nigeria. The top right is my school's name, and the bottom left is also a building in my school. Next slide, please. All right, IEW during my exchange. All right, so I think it's important to celebrate IEW so we can break all stereotypes about each other's countries or cultures. For example, during my exchange while I was presenting, I got asked a lot of questions. A guy asked me if we lived on trees or ride on elephants to school. Yeah, it was really funny, and I don't blame them because they didn't really know about those things. So I enlightened them on them and told them we actually have cars and other things like that. So that is a sample photo of a letter I wrote to my teacher. Okay, so about my presentations, I made 60 presentations in my whole school. I got to present in every class in my school, all with the help of my English teacher. She helped me by sending this letter to the teachers in the school asking for permission so I could present in their classes. And yeah, I got to make 60 presentations in the school, and I also made one in the church, in my host parents' church. I made one in the church. I also made one in the schools, in my schools, like the middle school. During they had an international students week, so we made presentations. I also cooked this. We call this jollof rice in Nigeria. So I made a pot of jollof rice for them to taste. Next slide, please. All right. So this year, together with the other year's alumni, we are planning to visit as many schools as possible that participate in the exchange program to enlighten them on the American culture, also make some of the America's favorite food, like potato salad, maybe some barbecue. Next slide, please. All right, so here are a few tips on IEW. First is to know your audience. I'm sure some of the other alumni presenters already talked on this, but I'm going to say a little more. So first is to know your audience, know their age groups and things that might interest them. You should also try to find out how much they already know about your country, your culture, or the topics you'll be speaking on. Next slide, please. The second thing that I think is important is to be honest. You have to be honest to yourself and to your audience also. Be yourself. Next slide, please. All right, the third thing I think is important is to be funny, because nobody would like to listen to a boring presentation. So maybe you should try throwing in some fun facts about your country and also some interesting jokes. Next slide, please. All right, so adding a lot of pictures to your presentation makes it a whole lot more interesting and makes it look more catchy and just makes everything better. Next slide, please. All right, so I think you should wear your traditional attires to presentations. I'm really sorry, guys. I don't really have photos because I kind of lost most of my photos. while coming back from the exchange somehow. So, but yeah, it's really important to wear traditional attires to present, because most from my experience, Americans love to see like different and colorful dresses. So yeah, and don't forget to display a few traditional fabrics, and also maybe you should take your country's flag to show them. Next slide, please. All right, so I think you should try teaching them a few simple words or phrases in your native language, like here in the picture. It will interest them more, and sometimes it's really hilarious hearing them trying to pronounce these few words. So it makes everything more fun and interesting. Next slide, please. All right, I also think you should prepare at least one snack or food from your home country for your audiences to taste. So here, during my presentation, I made jollof rice to the middle school, but I couldn't make jollof rice to the high school presentations because there were too many, and I couldn't be making jollof rice every day. Next slide, please. All right. Also, I think you should play a popular song from your home country, or perform and teach them a popular dance to a native song in your home country. I think it's really fun too. Next slide, please. All right. So if you want your audience to remember and enjoy your presentation, make it precise and a fun learning experience. It will also give your audiences more time to ask questions. You can answer questions during the presentation, but in order to keep it organized and effective, it is best to have a question and answer session towards the end. Next slide, please. All right, so question and answer sessions is the best part of a presentation. That is when you get to understand how much your audiences have learned from you and get asked a lot of different fun questions. Yeah, that's most of I think I've used up my time right now, so I really hope you guys understand and enjoy my presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Abdul, for sharing your presentation as well. Now we are going to actually open up the panel to questions. So I ask all the alumni speakers on the panel to please turn on your camera and join the conversation. And I'll share some questions that we've been getting. We've gotten a lot of questions. And if anyone needs to leave at 7 p.m., you're welcome to leave. And if you want to stay and answer questions from the participants, we'll keep this webinar going for another few minutes. Okay, so the first question that I would like someone from the alumni panel to talk about is, how can alumni do projects in their home countries? So for yes alumni who go back to their home countries, what can they do in their home countries? And then also for yes abroad alums who come back to the US. So maybe we can have one yes alum, whoever wants to talk about this, raise your hand. And great, Daisy. So yes.
Well, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
All right, okay. So coming back home and talking about America is a lot of bragging towards my friends, because they think, hey, okay, you've been to the US and so what? But it was really challenging presenting, exchanging American culture towards my friends in Cameroon. But what I did was I made this opportunity for that session to be possible, where I shared my experiences I had in the US, and I kind of cleared some stereotypes that we Cameroonians have about Americans. Yeah. There were a lot of questions too and many people were like curious on how to apply for the program. But unfortunately, my friends were already old enough. So it's really challenging coming back home and presenting about American culture, because many of them think you want to brag about your exchange here. So you just have to find the right way, the right medium to share this. Yeah.
I can go next. I think it's important to like maybe go to local high schools. The same thing, like basically what you're doing in your host country, you can do that in back when you get back home. It's because now you gain some knowledge, and now you're gonna share that with the people back home. And like you'll come back with a new perspective of things. You'll see that things that you never noticed are like kind of like, oh, I didn't notice that we did that back home, but back there we didn't do that. So things like that are all things you can share. And it doesn't have to be a formal presentation. It can be maybe sometimes informal, where you could just be speaking with your family. Oh, back home, back in my host country, we did this. We ate things like this. For dinner, instead of us watching TV, we did things like this. Or if you want to do like for International Education Week, formal presentation, you can do like what we're doing now, like a webinar. You can do a webinar with your some friends back in your host country, and you can get some of your friends. You can have them get to know each other, meet each other, talk about the differences, talk about the things that are the same between the cultures. There's all ways that you can like really do something for International Education Week. There are a whole lot of ways. You just have to really sit down and brainstorm, and kind of even talk to other alumni, or like I said, like I put my email and Instagram in the messages. So if you like need like any other help, I can like go through like ideas with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Marco. So the next question we have is, what topics do people want to know more or the most about? So, and then we had a question which was, what topics apart from food? I personally love food, so I can talk about food all the time. But do we have, perhaps from the other alumni panelists, any suggestions for which topics should students talk about in their presentations for their countries? Yes, Alexis.
All right. So an idea could be maybe talking about religion and like the way that people practice it over there, and even like making a comparison to like how, for example, in Albania we have Christians, and so I compared the Christians of Albania to like the Christians of Utah, and it was like a very cool experience of telling them how people celebrate things and how people do things. And then another one would be like the history of the country without it getting like political, and like it should usually be, in my opinion, very precise, because history is fun, but not everyone is nerdy like I am and wants to hear everything. So maybe like a very short like summary of your history, and then they could ask questions. And like my number one suggestion would be giving a presentation and then opening it up, because there's things people want to know about that you maybe never had an idea that anyone cared about. And then another thing could be like fashion and like what people like to wear and how they wear it and how it changes in between like genders and seasons. I find that cool.
Great, thank you. Let's hear from Abdul and then we'll go to Heba for this answer.
All right, so I think maybe a topic people should focus on is education aspect, because okay, during my exchange I talked about like the different ways, like different education system in America and in Nigeria, because the education system in Nigeria is a whole lot harder than the education system in America. So like I got asked a lot of questions about like our education system, how long we go to school, like how many classes we take in a day, yeah, and things like that. So yeah, education aspect is also a good topic to talk about. Thank you.
Great, thanks Abdul. Heba, what do you think?
I think religion is a very great point to talk about, because I personally had to clear a little bit of misconceptions about Islam, and how we do things our own way. And the second thing, being a citizen of the Middle East, and they have these kind of misconceptions about people in the Middle East. And what do we do with our dear lives? Is it the same thing as the USA? And especially because I'm from Palestine, Gaza, and they get all the news about Gaza and everything that's going on. Mostly I talked about politics and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And it was very beneficial because media can be manipulated so they don't get all the news and all the sides of the stories. So that was a very great point to talk about. So my advice would be, if your country it has been a war zone for a while, or suffers from conflict with another country, it'd be a really good point to talk about that and just clear some of the misconceptions they have about it. And talk about how you dress, how you do everything, your daily life, when do you go to school, what subjects do you take, the difference between the educational system, because there's a huge gap between our educational system and the US educational system. That'd be a very great point to focus out.
Great, thank you, Heba. And we also so I just want to remind everyone to be very specific and intentional about your audience. So definitely, measure the room, like know who your audience is going to be, and then sort of tailor your topics according to that. So for example, for kindergarten students, you can talk about candy in your country. And if you have any by any chance, or maybe you can get some from Amazon or something, you can bring that to your presentations. And also we just had a comment from someone from Khwaja who says that he talked about different fruits in his home country. And I think I remembered I talked about jamun, which is a fruit from Pakistan, and people were like, what is that? And I was like, it's the best thing in the world. So that's definitely something that you can also talk about. So we'll do another question, which is from a placement organization. So do the alumni speakers think, or do they wish that the PO had prepared them for IEW better? Do you think there's a way that placement organizations such as AFS or PACS or whoever your placement organization was could have done something to help you prepare better for IEW? It can be, whatever you think it could be. So do we have any? Yes, Alexis.
So according to me, the best way to prepare students would be to actually have them do it, and that's just how I see it. My local coordinator had my friends and I get together and present for her and for our host families before we presented for anyone else. And it was kind of like a mock classroom situation where they asked us questions and we responded, and they gave us the critique on how to make it a little more appealing. So I feel like that was perfect because by the time I went to present for a bigger group, I already knew what I was up for. And so that's how that worked. And then another amazing thing that we did during orientation with the ES program, we learned elevator speeches. So how to quickly tell the people that you're presenting to what your presentation is about and what's the intention of International Education Week, because not everyone is going to know. So I feel like I was well prepared, and I feel like I got the best out of what they gave me. So yay PACs, yay placement organizations.
Amazing. Great. That's a really good point, that you can actually use your placement organization as your first audience to get better practice. What do you think, Marco? I think you're muted.
Oh, wait. Well, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So first I'm going to answer this question, then I have to answer a question that somebody sent me in the chat. But I think what my coordinators in DC always would say is the Yes Abroad program is what we make of it. So we basically they send us to a country. They just not send us to a country just to say, okay, you're in Bulgaria now, figure it out for yourself. But basically they kind of give us a guide, but in a way we have to kind of form the experience for ourselves. So I believe that that's why I put in the presentation the website where you can go and see different ideas. So kind of do the research for yourself, look at YouTube videos, do as much research as you can, and kind of maybe just if you feel you're underprepared, then go prepare yourself. And then for the question, somebody asked me about how did I overcome like the language barrier in the curriculum in Bulgaria. So I was not the best in Bulgarian in my cohort. So basically with me, I like did extra lessons with my language coordinator. She was really helpful. Like I would just come for 2 extra hours, or I would stay after our lessons. She was very, very fine with that. She knew like Bulgarian I was not doing that well in Bulgaria, but at the end, I kind of got good, like just going to extra lessons. And I would recommend that if you are thinking of going to Bulgaria or any country, to try studying the language beforehand. So when you get there, it's not that hard. And then with the curriculum, since I was a gap year student, I really didn't have to do as much in class. They kind of placed us in the school more to interact with the students, so we can learn more about the culture through the students than to actually like learn curriculum, since we already had graduated high school.
Great, thanks, Marco. And I also want to mention that language is another great topic to talk about during your IEW presentations. I personally wrote people's names in Urdu on the whiteboard, and people would, really freak out, and they were really interested in how their name looks in a different language. So that's definitely something you can try. You can also do that with henna. You can write people's names with henna on their hands. Definitely make sure to test the henna before and make sure that it's not toxic or people have allergic reactions to it. So just keep that in mind. So we'll take one more question before ending the webinar. But even before that, let's do one final poll. I really am interested in sort of knowing what you guys learned from the webinar, people that are the participants. So we're going to launch our final poll. So do you feel that you're more prepared and motivated to lead an IEW project after attending this webinar? Yes, kind of, no. What do you think? Once again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, or whatever time zone you're in currently. This is truly such an amazing turnout for us. Great. So we have 76% of the people who responded feel like they are much more prepared. So that's really wonderful to hear. So thank you so much to the alumni panelists for making that happen. We'll do one more question before ending the webinar. So how do you make presentations more specific to the audience? For example, if someone wants to do a presentation in an elementary school compared to a middle school, compared to high school, I talked about it a little bit before, but maybe someone can elaborate on that if they have more ideas on how can you make your presentations more suitable for the particular group that you're presenting for. Would anyone like to take a stab at it? Daisy.
Okay, elementary, think of games. Middle school, think of social life. High school, think of social life. For high school, I mean, you're also a teenager, so the things that attract you should obviously attract them. For example, music. For example, clothing. Yes. Then for the adults, you can talk about your history and stuff. And for the church, if at all you get to do a presentation in church, you can talk about your religion back home, and the differences in religion. And depending on where and when you present, you can always find something to relate with your audience. That's why you have to study your audience before your presentations.
Amazing, thank you. And Marco, what do you think?
Interactive, like something that'll get them out of their seats. They probably want to do something that like allow them to move a lot. Middle school, high school, I have noticed in the past that food attracts them. So that's kind of why I went to the dessert route. So maybe do something like bringing candy or like some type of food that's like personal to your culture or something like that. So just kind of like, and I feel like every high school and elementary school is different. So maybe kind of go in and look at your audience before you actually like figure out your project, and then they'll help you to get a better idea of what you want to do.
Amazing.
Can I
Okay.
add something? Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
please, yeah.
Yeah. What I did during my presentation was I kind of interviewed my classmates before I did my presentation. So did a short interview and asked them what they think they would love to know about my country. Then that helped me write down my presentation. So you can interview them before.
Great. Okay, so we'll do one more question. Why not? We're all here.
Yeah.
So how do you prepare people in your school for permission to present? So really, it's how do you ask for permission from people in your school? Yes, Alexis.
Okay, so the way that I did it was I really learned the elevator speech by heart that we learned during our orientation in DC. So like I really quickly summed up what International Education Week was, why it was important to me and the YES program, and then I asked all of my teachers if they were interested in having me present. And then I also presented for like my teachers for my second semester classes. So I just found it really cool. And the way you would do it is like, at first you should ask like someone, either the principal or another person, if they're okay with you presenting. I think I asked the ladies at the office, and then go to every teacher individually. And the way that I did it was I asked them how it was best for them. If I did it like, if I gave a presentation, or if I had like a Q&A, or if I did something else and played a game. And so I feel like it's specific to the person who is in charge of like the place where you're going to be presenting, but most people are going to be really excited to listen, and the elevator speech really has your back.
Great. Thank you so much, Alexis, and thank you everyone who joined us today for the webinar. I have one more thing to share before we leave, which is that we also have a survey. If you would like to share more feedback about the webinar, how did you find it? Was it interesting? Was it informative? If you have any suggestions for future webinars or topics that you would like to learn about, please take the webinar survey and let us know. Once again, thank you so much to everyone, to the panelists who joined us, to my colleagues who helped make this happen, and to everyone from all over the world who joined us today to learn about International Education Week. This is a great opportunity to showcase your culture and yourselves, and I wish everyone the best of luck. This is really, really exciting, so please make the most of it. And also use hashtag YesIsIEW when you share your posts. Send us your stories, and we will love to highlight them. So thank you once again. Have a great night, everyone. And finally, before I leave, there's also this recording on the website. So we will share the recording for the webinar on social media, on YouTube, on everything. So whoever did not get to see this or would want to see it again, it will be posted everywhere. So once again, thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody. And I hope you have an incredible IEW.